Hi, everybody. Hey, everyone. We're live. We're doing this Thursday night battles thing. Um, we took a couple weeks off there for a few different reasons. But I'm back this week with the Wordburglar, Sean.
Yo, Joe. Yo, Joe. What is up? Great to be here. Thank you, Paul.
So,
Are you hearing me? Am I coming through? Okay.
yeah, I'm hearing you.
Okay. I'm seeing a delay. I didn't
Yeah,
know.
there's a little bit of a
I don't know where I'm supposed to look. Where is everybody?
there might be a little bit of a delay. Now I'm in so full disclosure, I'm in East Aurora, New York, which is my hometown, and I currently live in Cleveland, but Buffalo area, East Aurora, New York, a home of Fisher Price. That's where I grew up, and I'm at my father's house right now because um, I needed some decent internet to do this with. I was at my brother's, but he's at like a third floor apartment with like no AC, and it was like 85 degrees today. And I was like, "There's no way I could pull this off with the fans blaring and the laptop sweat pouring down my face, like on the what's his name, an airplane trying to land the plane in the airplane movie. Remember, it's gushing the sweat. That's what I felt like all day. So I took a shower and I came here, and now I'm in the basement, and it's nice and cool. It's like a bunker, so it should be good. Um,
I thought it was possibly a Zartan swamp camouflage. You changed a gas station into a swamp
I
shack or
should
something.
have done like a backdrop, like you can do in Zoom, these backdrop things. Um, but I don't know how to do that here. I bet you there's a way. I could have totally done a swamp shanty back there. Um, and hey, and we'll be talking about a G.I. Joe comic book later on in the episode here that features Zartan's swamp shanty. Um, but
Wow, what a
yeah, I mean,
coincidence.
we didn't even plan that. So I don't know about you guys. I know I talked to Sean briefly before we went live here. I don't know about how many of you guys are in here. I know Chris is in there for the full force. I know there's a couple other people in here. Jason Royalty's in here. Um, he sent me some messages earlier before I went live, and it was all about trying to get that Cobra Commander classified series figure from that network app. So Hasbro decided, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was an SDCC exclusive or what, that wasn't going to be available because they're not doing it this year. Um, they decided to drop this thing on this network app. And from what I gathered, this network app is like one of those social marketing platforms that helps brands garner excitement about a product or something. Usually, probably it's overstock. Who knows what it is? But they drop it. They like schedule it for a day. They tell you the time. You sign up. You got to get the app. I guess it doesn't work great on Android. So I had my iOS app downloaded. I made an account, and basically what you do is you wait for the drop, and then you go in and you buy it. And they do this thing where you get a code when you sign up, and if you share that code, you get a credit, and then the person who signs up gets the credit. So it's like this way to spread and gain users for the platform. And I had some reservations knowing how these things work in the past, being a user experience designer in my day job, knowing about the troubles that can happen with product drops, having worked for Apple at the Apple Store when the original iPhone came out, and remembering that whole cluster when all the servers went down for AT&T and we couldn't activate any phones, and there's a line 10 miles long out the door. So I kind of expected it to go bad, and man, did it go bad. It went the worst possible way for me almost the exact way I'd expect. So I'll just run down my experience and see if anybody else has the same experience. So prior to today, I downloaded the app, never used it before, made an account, never had an account with them before. They have a wallet inside the app. I inputted my credit card information, boom, done. Um, I set up Apple Pay, boom, done. I set up my address, my shipping address, boom, done. All of it was saved, all of it was ready to go. All I had to do, and I had credits in there from people using my code. I had like $60 worth of credits. So all I had to do at 8 o'clock,
I used your
yeah,
code.
you did. Thanks, Sean. Uh,
You're
thanks. That
welcome.
that really helped. So
Please
so
continue.
today, it's 7:58, 7:59. I'm ready to go. Have the app loaded. Have Cobra Commander's page loaded. Says dropping soon. I literally, you drag down on the app and you get the scroll wheel to refresh the page. You drag with your finger. I drag down. It refreshes. The clock strikes 8 o'clock. The button turns from dropping soon to purchase. I'm ready to go. It doesn't look like I can add a number in there. I didn't see anywhere I could add a quantity, right? So I'm not going to worry about it because I know how these things go. I'm not going to at least get one. Hit purchase. It recognized, started spinning, 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 and then that's what it did for about 3 minutes. Spun, 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 spun. And then I get a little message, two messages actually. The first one underneath the button says, item is no longer available. And then a second window pops up and says something to the effect of, we don't have a valid shipping address for you. Your wallet isn't set up with an address. I'm like, to hell it isn't. I set that up yesterday. So I try to put in my address. Hit
And you've ordered one or two things off the internet
a
before.
couple things. I think off of
Yeah.
uh, AOL.com back in the day on my dial-up internet. I think I ordered things on Yahoo Auctions back in the day. Remember that? Um, but
Those the only places. So you have experience with
yeah,
two
I
two
bought two
websites.
things. One was
Yeah.
Irish Spring soap on a rope, and the other one was a can of tomato soup. I don't know. Anyway, so so it's thinking you don't have your address. I'm like, oh, here we go. I already know this is. I'm not going to get it. This is their servers are overloaded. They weren't prepared for the volume. This is a disaster. But I'll play the game. Put in my address. Hit save. Spins and spins and spins and spins for a couple more minutes. The little red message that says something like, "We are having trouble," or "Your address is like incorrect," or so, like, "We can't add your address." And I'm like, oh, here we go. So I do it again, and then I get stuck in this weird cycle. I try to add it again, and then this window comes over. It says, enter your phone number to get a text verification code. I'm like, what? So I put in my phone number, hit send code, nothing, 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 nothing. And then it finally says, unable to send SMS text message. Do it again, do it again, do it again. Finally, it sends a code. It pops up in my text messages. I enter the code in the field, invalid code. So then this goes back and forth. Then it gets to a point where I have the code, but it's still displaying the phone number. So I can't put the code in because I have this phone number. I quit the app. There's no way around it. I'm stuck in this cycle. I cannot get to my profile. I can't go to my anything. The only thing I can see is I need to put this code in to unlock the app or something. Maybe I got locked out. Who knows? And this went on from I would say 8 o'clock to right before we went live. I knew it was going to work. I had it over here on the side on the table, and I just kept hitting send, 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 because at this point I'm like, you know what? Maybe their servers are overloaded, and I'm just going to add to the overload. I am just going to ping the hell out of them and make it worse because they they made it hell for me. So I know, Sean, in talking to you, you actually got a Cobra Commander figure.
Well, I think I did. Let me double check. Mealy.
So Chris says he had the exact same experience.
I'm gonna double check that we got the
Oh,
Cobra
well,
Commander.
Chris.
Do you want to be on
Oh yeah,
TV?
yeah.
No.
Oh,
Okay, here. Can you bring it up? So the amazing Mealy sashimi. I know. I just want to know if we got. I had to order it on her phone. Is this the confirmation? How do I do this? So I don't understand this app. Here we go. Thank you, Mealy. I'm sorry for yelling. Um, can you can you show me? Can you just show me,
so.
please, the confirmation? So I couldn't use it on. I have an Android
Mm-hmm.
phone, and it would not take the Android at all. So I couldn't. I have the app on it. The app wouldn't even start. It wouldn't even open on my phone.
So
So lovely. Yeah. Okay. I'll have a look at the receipt.
Chris is
Thank you
saying
so
that
much.
Apple users had issues. So here's the thing: Apple users can use the app,
Yeah.
but they had issues, whereas Android users can't even use the app. So who was able to do this?
Okay. So I got it. I got the $15 discount, $7.99, and it says it's shipping. Your network order is secured, and the total order I received $15
Hmm.
off. So Cobra Commander, it says cost $7.99, which was great. But then they tagged on a whole bunch of
Of course,
shipping,
you're in Canada.
and I'm in Canada, but the shipping is never this much. And so my total is $44.94
Wow.
with the discount. Thanks, Mealy.
Thanks, Mealy. So it's a good thing at least you got that discount on there. So
Yeah, so that's amazing. But I feel like I don't know. Is it possible they adjusted the price because they knew everyone was going to use these
could
$15 things?
be.
Plus, I mean, I've had this experience before trying to buy concert tickets, and some of these sites they just get
Yep.
hacked. Somebody runs a
Yeah.
program and
Right.
they go in.
Exactly.
So I had my alarm clock set. We had just put the baby down, and we're like, all right, we're gonna do this. And I'm never lucky with this stuff, so I'm amazed I was able to get it. Not rubbing it in your face. I am sorry for anyone who didn't get it. Um, but I don't know. It's super frustrating. It sucks that Joe fans had to deal with this and Hasbro didn't do something directly. But I guess at the same time, maybe this brought more awareness to the new
Right.
toy line to people outside of our Joe
I think
community.
that's the
That
goal.
yeah.
Yeah, but I don't really know. I don't have a any knowledge of Network's user base. They feel rather new to me. It feels kind of like a startup that isn't ready for prime time that got hammered. Their servers got hammered today. They got like, you know, some IBM like Blade server in the basement of the founder's house. You know what I mean? And they're like, man, maybe we should get more computing power than this next time. But that's just kind of how it felt to me. I know I'm exaggerating, but I could be right. So the other thing, it looks like Chris says from the Full Force says he had the exact same experience that I did, apparently, because I think he put that comment in while I was talking before.
And he's a really smart
He's
human as
pretty smart,
well. And I know he's got stuff off the internet
but he
before.
says, uh, I accidentally bought two and I didn't even know it. So
Oh,
I've been able to get back in the app. Uh, I hit purchase a few times, even after it denied me the first time, before it got to the address page. So it's very possible maybe I ordered one or two and don't even know yet. So I could very well the next time I am able to get into the app, I could find out that I got one. But right now I feel like I didn't.
so do you think it's the code that threw this whole thing off? Everybody trying to get
Well,
15 bucks?
Jason said, Jason Royalty, he's here in the chat. He said, um, so he had said something where I'm trying to find his comment, but he had said to me that he was having the exact same experience as I was having it at the same time. And oh, he ran into the same issue with the address. So he had put his address in prior, and then when he tried to buy it, said it didn't have the right address or something. He couldn't update it. He was having issues. And then at some point, he was able to get in after it was sold out. And he said the address information was back magically back in his wallet. So um, I don't know. I don't know. It could be an issue. There's so many issues that could be in play here with the amount of traffic they were having, database issues, tying addresses to user accounts, to cards, to who knows? Yeah, like who knows
Codes.
how many
Yeah.
platforms are trying to connect here? They could have the platform
Yeah.
for their
Yeah.
merchandise, a separate platform to run the authorization on the cards. Like, and those have to talk to each other, and who knows? But anyway,
It, it sounds like an evil scheme put together by none other than Codebra
the
Commander.
network app brought to you by Extensive Enterprises.
Yeah, good old Codebra against us all. Uh I'm curious how many they even had.
Right.
Because if this was a San Diego
We're
exclusive,
guessing.
I mean, what do we think? 5,000,
Oh
ten
yeah, I don't
thousand,
know.
2,000,
I mean, no,
50,000,
500. Oh, look at
500?
hey,
That seems
my
meager.
dad's cat's here.
Because I actually like this version better than the other one. I like that
I
gold.
know, same.
I like all the extra gold on him, and I know it looks a little bit more to the
Mm-hmm.
cartoony. I will say I don't know how much I love the helmet
Right.
compared, like, if we're actually talking about the figure design. I think it's a great looking figure. Destro is still my favorite of the ones that have been revealed thus
Same.
far.
Yeah, I think same.
I
Destro's like spot on. You know, and the things they made, they
Yeah.
did tweak on him actually fit him really well. So, and they're very
Mm.
subtle. But I think the other thing I'm thinking is Hasbro would have been smart to still hold on to inventory of this figure for Hasbro Pulse or another network release in a few days, just so that if things go really poorly here, people have at least a second chance to get it. Like like it went poorly, it sounds like. And I know remember the Pepsi what the heck's it called? The Pepsi from Back to the Future Part Two when they did that release for the bottle. Pepsi. What's the? It's not Pepsi
They
Free. What's the Back to the Future Part Two?
for
It's like Pepsi something Future. I don't know. It's like there's Pepsi Free and Pepsi Diet Pepsi and everything. They did those releases.
Oh, I
Was
don't
they
know that
released the
one. Yeah.
bottle and everything for that Pepsi?
I remember Crystal Pepsi, but that was in the
Right. Well, this
90s.
Pepsi was only in the movie, but they did a release for Back to the Future Anniversary a few years ago, and it was like the future Pepsi bottle from Back to the Future 2, and it was all the packaging. And they did a timed release like this, and it went really bad. And then they people were pissed, and then they did it again like a week later, and it went bad again. And then they did another one a week later, and I try to get it every time. I didn't get it any of the times. I was at work. I was like in meetings on my phone trying to get this Pepsi thing. I couldn't get it. But
Maybe it's
I
you.
know.
Maybe it's you,
Maybe I
Paul.
just should just stop doing this stuff. I mean, I've tried timed releases on posters from poster artists, and I've never gotten one. So maybe it's just me. The only time I have is signal noise stuff, and it's only because I know James. So I'm just like, hey, James, can you set a poster aside for me? Because there's no way I'm going to get one.
Shout out Signal Noise. Yeah,
Oh, Pepsi
absolutely.
Perfect. That's what it's called. Thanks, Joey.
Pepsi
Yes.
Perfect. Wow, I did not know
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah. So,
Well, hopefully, Network will acknowledge there's been some difficulty and a lot of people got denied the figure, and hopefully they'll rectify that and get some new gold paint app Cobra Commanders
yeah.
out
Or I'll
there,
be
right?
on.
Because I mean, personally, I don't care about the limited thing. If it's a cool version, I want everyone who wants it to get a
Right.
copy. I've never, having that limited edition thing doesn't mean anything to me. I'm going to open him up. Um, so far, he's only the third figure I've got from uh, I've ordered from this whole classified line so far. I got a Destro and the Snake Eyes Hasbro Pulse
Nice.
edition, and then Coco, and then I'm hoping that the others are going to come to retail.
Yeah,
But
I'm
we'll
hoping
see.
they'll get to retail in Canada for you. You know what I mean? So we'll have to see.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah. I should say in Canada because we always get screwed over by that stuff.
well,
If only I knew some people in the U.S. who might be able to get me some GI
I'll see
Joes.
if I could talk to some people here. Maybe somebody can help you out.
Man, I've been relying on my American friends and family since I was a kid. I remember I couldn't find bat anywhere as a kid, and I have family in California, and my aunt got found me a bat figure. Like my mom's calling her up, was like, "Can you look for this like GI Joe figure?" And I remember getting the bat mailed to me, and it was the first time I realized that all the U.S. file cards were all in English. And they were twice as long. So all the Canadian ones I'd grown up with were French and English, and it just repeated the same thing in French and English. So while my French kept improving, I only got half the battle on every file
Right.
card.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until
That's
years
funny.
later when I would find like yojo.com and see, oh, you get the full file card. There's a whole other story here. What do you mean, Footloose? There's more to this guy? Yeah.
That's
Anyways,
funny.
there's not that much more to Footloose. Okay. I kid. You love Footloose. He gets a bad rap.
Footloose is
Love
he's a great.
Footloose.
I love the code name. I mean, come on. So I managed to get into the app, and it doesn't look like I got one. It was a it was a con. I
Is it,
said
and it's still sold out?
I didn't even look, honestly. I don't see it in the. I just see upcoming, and it's in the past. So yeah, sold out.
Ah.
Yeah, so it was the
Well, congratulations, network. If they sold out of this thing. Hopefully, it wasn't just one or two people buying like 500.
right. And the thing is,
Yeah.
it said my address wasn't valid or wasn't in there, and now it's in my wallet again, just like it happened to Jason. I look at my wallet, cards there, address is there, just as it was before. So
Write a strongly worded
I'm
email and
gonna
see
I'm
what
gonna
you.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna say something. I mean, if I didn't work in marketing and in user experience design for apps and websites, I wouldn't understand this as much. But I feel like this is something that the higher ups decide to do, and everyone underneath is like, we don't have the bandwidth, we don't have the infrastructure to handle this kind of thing. But then they do it anyway.
Mm,
So, or if you're at Hasbro, they're like, hey, some marketing guys like, hey, this network thing's pretty hip and cool, let's use it. And if they talk to anybody who did any research on that, they'd be like, probably not the best platform to release on because I don't think they can handle the traffic. But who knows?
mm.
So, but speaking of in-store items, and speaking of Canada, this week the GI Joe retro line, according to His Tank, anyway, histank.com, the retro line started shipping or arriving in Canada and the U.S. Actually, the Canadian news came out like a day or two before. So, I know Hasbro Pulse has a Fan First Friday a week from tomorrow on the 26th that is G.I. Joe focused for some kind of reveal. So it could be G.I. Joe classified news, but it could be maybe a reveal of the retro line because it would kind of behoove them to kind of want to. If I'm Hasbro, I want to announce it before everything leaks, and that's very rare these days. Like classified leaked before they announced it. The images of the figures leaked before they announced or show revealed the figures. This is, we know we're getting a retro line. There's a good idea of what we're getting, but still people don't know if we're getting O-rings or if we're getting 25th anniversary type figures. You know what I mean? So, what do you think about that?
I'm very excited for anyone watching who doesn't know. When you say they arrived in Canada and they arrived in the US, that means that the shipping containers have landed
Right,
from, they're coming
right.
from China. Is that
That's what
correct?
I
Right.
gather. Yes.
Yeah. So that's, and someone at that level leaked photos saying they're here, or someone has access to what's on the container pier or what's. I'm fascinated with how this information gets out there when it trickles in these things. And I'm used to it because, like you, I'm like, I get deep into
Mm-hmm.
this stuff, but I find it fascinating that there's somebody, is it somebody working at the shipyard who's like checking constantly to see. I know when I used to work retail and we'd get like a new SKU or we'd get like a notice that something was coming and you try and decipher it and guess, okay, this, I think it's the new
Right.
Spider-Man figures, or, oh, this is X-Men movie figures, or whatever it is. And I don't know, like whoever's sharing this intel, cool, thank you. To answer your question, O-ring or modern era, I don't know. I would be surprised if either are new sculpts. If like I'm guessing if it's O-ring, they're going to be reused molds, and if they're modern era, which kind of makes more sense because they've got all those figures and like the great stuff from Pursuit of Cobra that was just phenomenal, and that 30th anniversary line, like with Lifeline and Airtight and Sci-Fi and that wave that nobody could find, or the final movie line that had the Night Creepers and the metal Cobra Commander, and when they did the 50th anniversary figures with Tombstone and everybody. So they've got all those, and that great Destro. Shout out Mark Webber, of course, who was involved in a lot of that stuff. So I'm thinking it's going to be modern era. It would be cool if it is O-ring, of course. I don't know. Have you heard anything else? I'm just
The
speculating.
only
And
thing I've seen is in those leaks, it was just basically like line items from basically some kind of manifest or something. And I believe, and Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, but oh, there it is. He already put it in. The bill of lading document stated that they are 3 3/4 inch. So we know if you're going to be literal with that, they're not 4 inch.
It's
So
O-ring.
it's
Yeah.
either O-ring or wasn't the 25th anniversary 3 3/4 before they went modern era. They were a little smaller. So my gut is from looking at it from a marketing standpoint, you have retro lines already for Star Wars, Transformers, and Ghostbusters. All three retro lines are the original 80s versions. So it would be really weird to have a G.I. Joe retro line and not do the 80s versions. And the 80s versions are O ring. So I am expecting it to be O ring. If it isn't, I would have kind of a problem from a marketing standpoint calling it retro collection because yes, it's old, but when you think retro, you think 80s. You don't necessarily think 2007. You know what I'm saying? So, so
But that was 13 years
right, and
ago.
I know people are like, well, I don't know where the molds are, and the molds might be gone, but hey, the molds from the 25th anniversary figures could be gone for all we know. So I don't think like we know they were using a lot of those molds in the early 2000s anyway, and we know the club had access to some of those molds. And then if Black Major and Red Laser have access to molds, I don't know why Hasbro couldn't remold or recast or have access to molds. So I'm like 99% expecting them to be O-ring. My only concern would be like I not concern, but my only uh, reason for pause would be GI Joe in the past. Things you expect them to do, they haven't done. Like things that were like a softball down the middle, easy home run, and they didn't take the swing. So I'm a little concerned that something might be wrong. Either they're not O-ring or they're O-ring, but the package art is 25th package art instead of the original package art. Like I'm afraid of something being off. So we'll have to wait and see.
Well, yeah, if they are brand new sculpt O-ring or anything really, but if they're new sculpt O-ring, they have done an amazing job of keeping this secret,
I
and
know.
that'll be cool. Like the Transformers retro, those are the original
Right.
figures, right? And I know they did the Toy Biz Marvel retro line not too
Mm-hmm.
long ago,
Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm.
and but those were bigger versions of the original
Right. Right.
figures, right? Like I've got the old Punisher here from that
Mm-hmm.
line.
But that's Toy Biz though, right?
Yeah, but Toy Biz is now part of Marvel, right?
Yeah, but it's not Hasbro, correct?
So, but Hasbro's making, or sorry, yeah, has it's part of the Marvel
Oh,
Legends
okay.
line,
All right. Yeah, I gotcha. Okay.
right? Like I think that's how they've, like all that whole Marvel Universe, Marvel Legends. Look at this guy.
That's
You ever see
yeah,
this
I
guy?
remember the original one.
You wind him up. Oh yeah, you
He's
gotta
got the punching action,
you put
right?
his hand up there. No, he has the machine gun.
Oh.
You wind up his back, and then you put the gun down. Here, check this out.
Yeah,
Did
I
you hear
did hear
that?
that. What has he got? Like a RoboCop machine pistol?
That's supposed to be a machine gun. It's a machine gun noise coming from
Yeah,
a
like the
pistol, yeah.
RoboCop one.
But he's pretty cool, you know. These guys kind of looked like knockoff superpowers figures when they
Right.
came out.
Yeah.
And there's, Punisher,
The
Doctor
Black
Doom.
Spider-Man.
They did the Venom,
Yeah.
yeah. So some cool.
That's
Anyways,
awesome.
but we're talking about GI Joe retro line. Yeah, that could be exciting. What else is new? What else were you here to do? What am I here to talk about? What's
Oh,
going
hey,
on, man?
so GIJoe.com relaunched finally. It's been dormant. So
Okay.
let me pull that up. So if you guys haven't been to GI Joe, I mean, I think most people have, but if you haven't been to GIJoe.com, um, there is a new website for GI Joe. I'm showing it now. It's really cool. It's like giant imagery. There's a throughout the years section that kind of gives you the history of GI Joe. There's meet the characters section, right? So there's a GI Joe characters section and a Cobra characters section, which has artwork for the classified figures we know about, but they also includes figures, maybe figures coming down the pike that don't have that classified artwork yet, but these might be classified figures we might be getting in the future if the series keeps on going. So That's kind of like the website. Um, and then on the characters end of it, so this is kind of like the page with the characters. So on the Joe's side, they got Barbecue, Chuckles, Covergirl, Doc, Duke, which we've gotten, or at least know about, Dusty, Flint, and then it's got Gung Ho, Hawk, Helix, Jinx, and then Lady J, Ripcord, Roadblock, which we've seen. That's classified artwork. Rock and Roll, Stalker, Snake Eyes, Sci-Fi, Scarlet, and Wild Bill. And then there's like a classified file section on both these character pages. And that's maybe future characters. And then, like, if you click on each of the characters, you get a little bio. For the guys that aren't already kind of announced for classified, they're just using random artwork from comic books, ranging from the Marvel series all the way up to like current IDW stuff. So that's just a mishmash of different styles. But and then like the Cobras one, I'll scroll that, which is cool because there's some army builders in here.
I mean, some of this art I don't recognize.
I
Like
think it's
the Dusty looks like he's from Valor versus Venom era.
right.
This Flint, I'm not sure where he's from. This Gung Ho, I don't recognize unless that was on
I
the 2 packs that came out from Walmart a couple years back.
I've heard
And this
from
Helix, I mean,
someone that
yeah.
at least one of them was a commission that one of the artists had made for someone. So I don't know where they're pulling that artwork from. It just seems random.
Some of these are new, yeah. Ripcord, we've seen that before, or that's a slightly altered
Hmm.
version of another. It almost looks like the Cobra Paratrooper figure that came out. That card art, and that Lady J art I've never seen
Yeah, right.
before.
That looks something completely one off to me.
And Rock and Roll almost looks like he's from the IDW run 2 or 1. No, but like 2 series ago that Sitterson
Right.
was writing. But um, and Stalker, yeah, some of these I haven't seen before, and that's the Wild Bill art that they used on the card when they did the modern era re-release.
Yep. Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen any of this stuff yet. So cool, cool,
Yeah,
cool.
and I'll run the I ran it, but let me run the Cobras one again. So the Cobras one, you've got Alley Viper, which we've seen on the packaging, but then you've got Bats, and Baroness, which we've seen. Cobra Viper, which would be amazing. Cobra Trooper, which is actually a Cobra Officer in this image, but Cobra Commander, Buzzard, Destro, Firefly, Major Blood, Red Ninja, Viper, Storm Shadow, Scrap Iron, which I'm psyched about. Then you got a lot of Dreadnoks too. You got Road Pig, Ripper, you got Tomax and Zaymot, which I'm psyched about, Torch, Zorana, Zartan, and then you have the classified files too. And Zartan is like right up there with Storm Shadow as far as my favorite Cobras. So I'm super psyched about that. Anybody stand out to you in that
Yeah,
group of Cobras?
that. Well, I'm just sort of surprised at some of the choices and some of these designs. I mean, Scrap Iron looks new.
This,
It's a ripper. Like a lot of these art pieces I haven't seen before. I don't know if they've been used in something else. Just
mm-hmm.
because I haven't seen it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
But
I think the
it doesn't ring a bell to me.
Scrap Iron's from a John Royal cover to one of the recent IDW issues.
Okay, okay, yeah, I could see that. Uh, I'm excited. It's an interesting choice of characters, actually. The new Firefly design.
Yeah, now I'm not
Yeah.
putting too much stock into this is how they're going to look for the classified line. I believe
Mm,
they don't have the classified artwork that matches the other classified art yet. So they're just putting in these placeholders. I would highly expect a lot of these characters to look different when and if they are released in classified, and to have some of those gold or electronic kind of like transformery robotic elements, onto their costumes. Like Duke's got him on his boots, and he's got that thing over his shoulder that's got the like little light in it, and so I expect that to happen. Like for example, I'll pull this up. So we've got this artwork for Storm Shadow and Red Ninja Viper, and these are on their profile pages, and these are at least especially for Storm Shadow. This is new art we hadn't seen up until now. So you see the classic Storm Shadow costume, but then it's got the kind of like those Batman gauntlets. He's got kind of like the Bane mask.
Yeah, or like a Mortal Kombat
Right.
kind of
And he's got
mask.
like the shin
Yeah.
guards and the knee pads. So basically they've kind of
And he got a lot of new ink on his a lot of
yeah.
tattoos
Yeah,
there. I
where
don't
the
remember him having.
Arashikage tattoo is, it's supposed to be on his right arm on the forearm, and he's got these gauntlets on it. We can't see at the top of the gauntlet. So I'm assuming that's where that tattoo is, and that's why they left the rest of that arm untattooed,
Mhm,
so you didn't
mhm.
lose the Arashikage tattoo. And then the left arm, since that tattoo isn't on it, they just went full sleeve. But but
Yeah.
but I really dig that Red
You
Winged
know,
Viper. I'm loving that design.
yeah, he does look cool. I gotta say, I don't like to poo poo on stuff, but these Dreadnought designs are not my favorite. This was kind of that Devil's Due
Hmm.
Valor versus Venom era redesign they did for Torch and Ripper specifically. And honestly, they just look
Right,
boring. The original Dreadnoughts, which we're going to talk about shortly, because we've got
we
that
do.
comic book we just read.
That's a good segue.
You know, yeah, like these, I just found when they did these redesigns, you took away all the personality from these characters. Uh, and they're just boring to me.
Right.
I don't know why you would do that. Like if I was a kid, I would not be excited about this. Like Torch
Sure.
just looks kind of
Yeah, that
basic.
Devil's Due
Uh,
era, all those characters were kind of just trimmed down to very like plain Jane versions of themselves, and I would be shocked if those illustrations turn out to be the classified series figures if they make them. I expect them to be completely. I expect them to
yeah.
look more like the ARAH versions with added accents like the other characters have. You know.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And I just with yeah, with all this art, this site looks great. I think they did an amazing job. I would love to see consistency amongst all the art. Like obviously the original Joe line, you look at the back of the package, everybody is drawn the same. It's this unifying beautiful art. And I think they're doing a great job with that classified art, the stuff that we've seen so
Hmm.
far. It's great to see it all unified. So when you just slap up all these different characters here, it's great for new people to get to see that there's a whole universe.
Right.
But I hope moving forward there can be a consistency amongst all the
Yeah.
characters because it kind of just takes you out. Why is this one painted and this one is just, pen and ink?
Right. And
But
I know
but
they're
I'm
for the
nitpicking. I
well,
digress. I
for
digress. I'm pouring over it
I
too
agree
much.
with you. For the package art, I know it's different for the packaging art. I know it's all different
Mm,
styles, but I think what they're trying to do there is bring in different comic book artists and have that kind of an angle to it. But for this website, um, the package art isn't what they're using for these characters. For example, Duke's package art is
yeah.
done by now I'm forgetting his name, the one comic book artist. Anyway, totally different style, but you have that same painted style as Baroness, Scarlet, Snake Eyes, Roadblock here on the website. And I expect as these characters are
Yeah.
released, the artwork will come down and the new artwork will replace it with the new character, and they should all match in that spot. So,
Well, you're an artist, it's I love comic art. If you're going to go comic, go all comic. If you're going to go painted, go all painted. Or there's a time and a
right,
place to do both, but the consistency and the stuff that stands out, it's cool. And all that art is beautiful on its own, but it's just kind of bouncing from one style to the
right,
next is a bit
exactly.
jarring. But I'm just
I feel
sensitive.
like
Jeez. Who
we
cares?
just have to. I feel like the artwork is in progress, and we just have to accept that the non-painted artwork is placeholder stuff, like James White had
Yeah.
said in here. I don't know if that's the
The
James
site
White or
looks
it's a different
amazing.
James
Like
White in our chat.
I think the site. Oh wow. Well, the site looks amazing. I was really surprised to see this much effort put into a GI Joe
Right.
website. I feel like I haven't seen this much effort put into anything for GI Joe launches in a long time. So props to whoever made this website.
It's
Nice job.
exciting that there's actual focus put on the brand
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. Super exciting. Yeah, really positive. All in all, the classified line. There's a lot to get excited about, and new movie, new stuff. The comics are chugging along. New issue came out this
Right?
week.
Back on
Great,
track with
great
those.
stuff.
And
Mm.
speaking of comic books, let's get into it. So they'll imagine a segment marker here that says comic book time or something, but I didn't make one yet. Um, so randomly, I'm sure.
You should have your dad come
Oh,
out
that's
with a
good.
sign like it's comic book time. Yeah, Dad, I'm still talking about
Yeah,
toys.
cigarette hanging out of his mouth. It's comic book time. Um, the Now I'm sure Sean, you might do this. I know a lot of you guys might do this, but with the Marvel run having been so iconic and basically my gateway drug to comic books. I mean, it's such a pinnacle moment in comics to me. That era of like the mid '80s, the Joe comics, and basically keeping Marvel afloat for a few years. Um, that I go back and reread them on a regular basis. Um, but what I have started to do, because you typically go to issue one and then you read through the whole run, and sometimes you make it, sometimes you don't, and you might end up in the 30s and you stop reading, and then a year goes by and you try it again. So what I started doing was I just open up the big white comic book box and I just reach in and pick out without looking at the box. So I don't know how deep I am in there. I reach in and I pick out a comic book. And whatever one I've picked is where I'm going to start from. So this time I did it and I started with uh, issue 30, which is I have a little graphic here. Um, so issue 30 is the one of my favorite covers of the entire run. It's a Mike Zeck cover, um, and it's got like this motion to it. This the dreadnoughts. They have their iconic looks, like you had mentioned before. Um, and one thing I want to say too, which I don't think I've heard anyone ever mention, but I notice it is great as like the IDW run is and everything. One little design detail that I miss is the changing GI Joe logo colors depending on the cover's colors. So in this case,
Mm-hmm.
the GI
Yep.
Joe is yellow because it looks better against the orange. And I wish they had kept doing that for IDW because that just it gives a little more personality to each of these covers. Sometimes there's no red, white, and blue at all in there, and it's completely like magenta or something. It's just
Mhm.
it's just a little thing that I like to see. Um, and this issue came out. This is volume one, number 30. It was released in December 1984. The cover is by Mike Zeck and John R. Beatty. Script by obviously Larry Hama. Pencils by Frank Springer. Inks by Andy Mushinsky. And lettering by Rick Parker. Colors by George Russos. And editor was
Yeah.
Denny O'Neil, who sadly
Rest in
passed
peace.
away. I believe it was
Yeah.
last week, right? Um,
Yep. Just passed away.
yeah, and I found that as I started reading from 30 on, and he was the editor for a good period, I think up to issue maybe 48 or something like that. Um, some of these are just some of the better, my favorite issues of the ARAH run. He happened to be editor
Yeah.
on, so I think that says something about him. He contributed to these. So what? How? So before we get into the actual deeper into this, what are your initial feelings about this issue? Do you have any specific memories with this issue as compared to maybe others?
Yeah, well, when you mentioned it to me and you said issue 30, instantly I know that cover with Ripper and the Dreadnoks and Buzzards just slashing the Sky Striker. It's amazing. I chose to read it I've got the hardcovers, the IDW hardcovers, which if any Joe fans out there don't have, track these down. They're so worth it. I have the full run in multiple versions from the original issues to the soft covers. But any chance I have to pull off one of the hardcovers from the shelf, and they have great issue notes after each chapter by Mark Bellamo, who did an amazing job. So shout out Mark with just some fun little notes at the end of each issue. Yeah, so when you said issue 30, that cover is amazing. But then I started thinking about the story, and I thought, well, okay, as far as I'm concerned, there's no really bad Larry Hama issues in the original Marvel run until maybe 128
Right, right,
or
right.
127. And there's maybe one fill-in issue that isn't so great. But Larry's stuff is always amazing. So there's no bad Larry Hama comics. There's just the ones that aren't my favorite issues. So 30, if you asked me to pick like my top 10 issues, 30 would not be in there.
Okay.
And I was trying to remember, I'm like, okay, well, I love the 30s. You've got the Ripcord storyline with Candy Apple and Bongo the Balloon Bear. You've got Destro at
Right,
you got the Snake Eyes Cabin storyline. You've got everybody trying to usurp Cobra Commander, right? Baroness and Major Blood have got this plot building. Firefly and Destro are plotting against him. Then Storm Shadow, like Cobra Commander's like, you're the only guy I can
right,
trust. This is all going on in the 30s, and Ripcord comes to prominence. We get a lot of Dreadnought and Zartan action. So the whole run of 30s issues are great. Issue 30 though, again, not dissing, but just I kind of forgot it.
hmm
But it has some great moments with the original Fred Broca or Broca, however you want to pronounce. And I don't know if you want to touch on that. But my initial thought was, oh yeah, issue 30, great cover. The story doesn't really pop out to me, and but it serves as such a great chapter in building this saga that was really unfolding, because the 20s were crazy with the silent
right.
issue, and you've got the origin of Snake Eyes, and we're getting these great, shot. You got the stuff with the Sky Striker, and your new characters getting introduced every issue. And then issue 30 comes, and you're like, what? Wait, what's kind of happening here? But there's a lot of pieces getting moved in classic Hama
Right.
fashion, where it's setting.
Yes.
This is a real
I was gonna
setup
say
issue.
this is exactly what he would
Yeah,
do. You'd ride these waves with his stories. You'd
yeah,
have the ebb and flow. So this might be like an ebb at first, but it's building to the flow later, and then it all culminates. Maybe it could be 6 issues down the road. Sometimes it's a year down the road. It all culminates, and then there's a settling period where you're kind of riding the ebb again into another story line and taking whatever the results are from that one and pushing them along to something new. So I always liked that
hmm
because you could feel it as a kid when you were first reading these for the first time. You could feel the anticipation building. You could feel it from issue to issue, like, oh, he's leading me somewhere. We're going somewhere. Something big is going to happen, but I don't know when. It could be this school year. It could be next school year. You know what I mean? I could be in sixth grade before something happens. Who knows?
Stalker could be out in the tundra by next.
Or in a prison camp with Snow Job and Quick
Yeah.
Cake.
Oh, see the
Oh,
60s run. Oh, I
we'll
love the
get into
60s,
those for
man.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 50s, 60s. Oh, there's so many. But yes, we're on issue
So
30 right now.
this one was called Darkness, which, all right, so something I loved about these old issues is like the titles, right? The titles, they would come up for the individual issues. And when my brother and I used to draw our own comic books, there it is, yes. I have it on screen, and I'm gonna zoom in on this one.
Oh, I can't see your screen. I can't see any of
All
this
right, so
stuff. So I can't see the Joe gallery, but shout out everybody who's
we got
chatting along
nine
with us.
viewers right now. We got some all stars in here.
Cheers.
Um, so it's called Darkness, right? And you can see it there, Sean. This is a hand rendered title, right? This isn't typed out in Photoshop. This isn't Adobe Illustrator. This isn't a font. This is actually somebody drew this out. And as a kid drawing comics with my brother, just for ourselves, we would grab the ruler. We would space everything out, make sure all the widths of the characters all matched and everything. And I really appreciate these hand drawn lettering for titles. And I kind of miss it, to be honest with you. Just like I miss this the old way of coloring the comic books. I'm not into the glows. I'm not into all that stuff. I know sometimes it looks cool, but I kind of like the tactile experience of the older ones, and I like the limitations it brings. I think it gives it some character. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, it depended on the paper too, as well. Like when this came out, it was on
Mm-hmm.
newsprint originally. And reading this in the hardcover, that's my only gripe with reading it. It's beautiful. The pages are bigger. thicker paper stock, nice hardcover, but you don't get that newsprint,
Right.
and the colors look different on the
They do.
on
It
glossy
doesn't look as
paper.
good.
It's beautiful. It
No,
doesn't
it's
look as
too
good.
bright.
It does not. That's why I could never
Yeah.
get rid of my originals. It just looks so it at the time that the coloring was designed to be printed on
Right.
newsprint, and that's what you got. And sometimes it'd be
Yes.
smudged and stuff would look a little weird, but it
Oh,
was
it's great.
great.
The
And
smell.
sometimes
Oh,
something was,
the
yeah,
smell. The ink and the paper.
blacks were blue and greens were
Right.
purple sometimes. I don't know,
Right.
but it's like stuff would get mixed up, right?
There's
Yeah.
some,
And someone would have the wrong,
yeah,
yeah, the
yeah. It
greatest.
was. It was just there was some kind of personality. It's almost like an intangible thing. You get an emotional feeling when you see it and you smell it, where you don't have that emotional kind of reaction when you see it when it's everything's so crisp and perfect. The paper is the best quality and it's glossy and the inks are so bright and it's just like it doesn't have the same impact, you know.
Hmm.
It's like music. You know a thing or two about music. I feel like if
I've done
yeah,
some
a little
music.
bit. I feel like if something is just overproduced, it loses something. It loses the soul of it somewhere along the line, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's why comics and music, I mean, but comics are such an incredible art form, right? Because anybody can do it, especially as a kid. You're talking about reading this with your brother. You can just go and draw your own comics. You
Hmm.
can make your own stories. You can do your own
Right.
continuation. As a kid, I didn't have every G.I. Joe issue until years later when I collected them all. Like my first issue of G.I. Joe wasn't until like past this. It was like 38. It was the first issue I ever owned. And I did not. And then I spent my life like trying to find issues at corner stores. And I'd miss like 5 issues. Like there'd be whole gaps that I didn't know what
Yep,
was going
same.
on. We've talked about this before. And I just make up the
Yes.
story in between the
Hmm.
issues, and I just be like, oh, this is what happens. And then, you'd play
Right.
them. And I'd have like 3 characters. I didn't have all the toys. But, okay, this week Bazooka's playing the role of
Right.
Footloose.
Right.
Where I just like pretend guys were different guys undercover. And when I found out Ripcord was undercover as Zartan, it's like, oh, wicked. Now I've got like a Zartan. Is it Zartan or is it
Yes.
Ripcord? You know? And that's living the adventure, right? And that's why this stuff has us still gabbing about it all these years
Exactly.
later.
Yeah,
You
they
know?
they had they were onto something back then. They really had it down.
Yeah, yeah. It's the
So
best.
in this issue, in issue 30, there are some, like I would agree with you. It wouldn't be in my top storylines. It wouldn't be my top like 10 issues or something. But there are some awesome panels in this book.
Killer
So
panels. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gonna point out a couple here, and I've got a few here. So um, Sean, I don't know if you probably can't see, but I'll describe it to you. See if you could follow along with the collection you have there. So the one of them I really dig is it is when Cobra is unloading the his tanks and fangs from the circus trucks.
Yeah.
I loved that as a kid. I remember thinking, first of all, the Arbco circus, Arbco is
So
scrambled up
great.
Cobra, and yes, and I love just that visual of them unload like these were hiding inside these circus trucks. And about that is like it says unload the his tanks and the snap helicopters. And I don't know why if they just messed if they didn't know if they were snap together fangs or if they just didn't have the right code name for these or what happened there.
Does it say that in your original
Yes.
issue? Wow. Okay, they corrected it for
Oh,
the
they
hardcover.
did.
If you can see, I don't
So it
know.
says Fang. Yeah, I see it.
It says
Yeah,
Fang.
no,
Yeah.
this one says Snap Helicopters.
Interesting.
So
See, you got to get those
yeah,
original
there's like these
issues.
little Easter egg things or these little mistakes that
Yeah.
are always so fascinating. So
Yeah.
I wonder if somebody wrote in about this for a no prize or something later.
Oh, guaranteed. If you think we're picky now, imagine us when we were like 6 years old. Wait a second, there's no Snap helicopter. I went to the J.C. Penney and I didn't see us. The lady said they only had a
Right.
fang, and then they were sold out, so I had to get an ass.
That's exactly how you sound as a kid, I'm sure of it. Um,
I don't want an
I don't
ass.
want an
You
ass.
get
It
the
sounds
ass.
like butts. Um,
The asp sucks.
I think
It just sits there. It's just a lazy boy with guns.
that's funny. I think that like
You can get busy in the back of it, though. Oh, the poor asp.
yes,
All right.
I would have totally written in and said you meant to say fang, but these were snap together fangs because with the propellers they wouldn't have been able to fit inside the circus trucks, so they came unassembled and you had to snap them together. That would have been my no prize explanation.
You know, now that I'm talking about the asp, now I want one because I did have that as a kid. It was one of the few things that now I want one.
They Gone says,
Dissing
"Hey, are
the
you
asp.
dogging asps?" No, I love the asp, man. I the one
I love the asp
the
too.
only
Yeah.
the only thing I don't love about, well, I love the whole thing. The only thing I wish it had was glass on the canopy. You know what I mean? But it would have had to have been a wider canopy because it's real snug against that against the guy that you put in there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. You could throw a rock in there and hit a guy's head.
so
Take
on
him
this
out.
specific
Slingshot.
right, you know what I love about the asp is how it stands up. So that so when it sits up, it's like the guy's almost in a standing position. I always thought that
Okay. Yeah. Now I got to track one down. I got to dig mine up.
I got a few.
Mine's in
Maybe
pieces.
maybe I'll
Now I'm
have to
like,
send you one. I
okay,
can send you one. I got a few.
hook me
I've
up.
got
Yeah. For being a guest on the show, everybody gets an
I
asp.
had three sealed, unopened ones, and I traded one for something, but I still have two. Um, let's see. Okay, so on this page at the very bottom, the last panel is Cobra Commander
Hmm.
kind of talking to his troops, right? I absolutely love this image of the Hiss driver, like how
Hmm.
geometric Springer drew the side of his mask, and then that rigid thing on the mohawk piece on the top of his head, and just how like his shoulders sit and everything. And the inking, man, the inking on the back of that helmet. Oh man, just for the shadow, and
Yeah.
on the Cobra Trooper's helmet. That's where I think these older issues, a lot of this stuff was filled in with inks because they were limited on the way they could color it. These days, you don't see as much of this heavy inking because they fill it in with a
Hmm.
lot of color, but I like it because it gives it more of a three-dimensional weight. And I also love how the
Yeah.
his cannons are breaking the frame at the top. Love that.
Yeah. Well, shout out Frank Springer, who also drew a bunch of Transformer
He did.
issues. And I tend to forget that he did work on Joe, but he did do one of my favorite Joe covers, which is the next issue, 31. And you're talking about inks, because that's Klaus Johnson,
Yes.
who worked on
Oh,
with Frank Miller, did a lot of stuff, and the Destro kicking in the door at Snake Eyes cabin. That's Frank
hold
Springer.
that up
And
again.
yeah, Jansen did the
Hold that
inks.
up again, Sean. I took the other one down. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, that is one of the classic covers. Like that angle and that the way he drew dimension and anatomy on Snake Eyes from that angle from the floor. It's basically like you're laying on the floor with Snake Eyes. And I always thought that was, as a viewer, you're down there with Snake Eyes. You know what I mean? It's just so good.
That's usually where I spent my time with
Down with
Snake
Snake
Eyes.
Eyes on the ground.
I was on the floor, on the
All right.
troops, boots on the ground, man.
Boots on the
Yeah.
ground. So, all right. So, I'm going to put up my favorite spread. So, those were just call outs. The
All right.
favorite one is from this page. And I think yours is on this spread too. Um, so, it might be after. So, basically, this spread it's, I wish I had the page numbers, but I don't. But it's where Fred and his family, well, his wife is on the phone with Cobra Commander. And Cobra Commander is basically telling them to pack up everything they just unpacked to move into this house to spy on G.I. Joe because they need
Yeah.
to leave and go somewhere else. And then the next page is the Fort Wadsworth, where all of the G.I. Joe vehicles are coming right past the house as he just wrecked all of his surveillance equipment.
Are you
I
showing that
am
on
showing it
screen
on
or should I
screen.
show? Yeah, so good. And like this is like Larry is such a great storyteller, and I think what sometimes gets overlooked is what a master humorist he is.
Yes.
There is so much comedy in the interactions of these characters and the dialogue throughout the whole run and all of his writing, where he's juggling these great stories and all these personalities, and he's throwing in these beautiful, like perfectly constructed comedic
Right.
moments. Like with Fred, and he's saying here, yeah, and I didn't even get a chance to turn on to turn it on for 1 minute. And he's turning his back just as all the vehicles are driving down the street. I mean, who's missing the amphibian personnel
A
character,
Lobat, a
carrier?
Wolverine. You got
Yeah,
all the Joe vehicles rumbling
yeah,
by, like within what was that, 30 feet from his front
yeah.
door, and
It's
it's
just
so
gold,
amazing.
gold.
And my favorite
Like
panel,
you would hear a tank
I
driving in front of your
know,
house.
I know. And these guys aren't going 5 miles an hour. I'm sure they're rocketing down the street. Um,
It's absolutely beautiful. I'm sure anyone who's still with us now. This is. Oh, did I just cut out for a
you
second?
did, you did. You're back. You're back though.
Okay. Just Fred Broca is just. I always said Fred Braca, so I'll still say Fred Braca. I
I
always
like
like saying
Braca.
Braca. It just sounded tougher. Just sounded tougher. I don't know.
I should have put that music on. I had thought about it. I just didn't have the time to put your
Uh,
music on to start. I don't want to
no,
get
man.
a
It's
I don't want to get a DNC or whatever claim from yeah, YouTube. You never know.
from my people. No, you have full rights. It's
All
all
right,
good.
all
The
right. You
but
heard it here
Fred
first.
broke. But Fred, like, and then Fred, of course, has an untimely demise in a couple issues. Spoiler
Mm-hmm.
alert. But this first Fred, and
First
again, this
Fred.
is like starting the saga. Like, he is the
Oh, I
first Fred.
know.
Like, this is kind of the first
Yep.
time, like, it became so iconic with the CGs and everything.
Yeah,
And,
and on this
like,
page, it says
yeah,
it gives you the asterisks when they say CGs. You don't know what that means, and he has the little call out in the bottom left corner. It says CGs, Crimson Guards,
yeah,
and that is maybe the first time we see that.
yeah. And there's a great moment with Billy in this as well, as Billy's starting to, you know, plot against Cobra Commander. And this early. Did you ever have the card set? I think it was Comic Images before Impel. There was a G.I. Joe card set put out by either Graffiti Designs or Comic Images, and they used all the Marvel art from, and they basically would take a lot of panels from the comics combined with some other art, and it's a
Hmm.
really great card set. And I remember I didn't have this issue, but there was a card about Major Blood and Baroness, working with Billy. And I was
Right.
like, oh, I got to get that. And like just
Yes.
being on the hunt. Because when you're a kid, you don't know what to do. If you're reading G.I. Joe in the 50s and then you find out about something that happened in issue, 25 or something, you're like, how
Right.
do I get this? Where do I go? Like, will I ever see it again?
Yeah, and that's
So,
exactly how I was as a kid because I think my first
yeah.
issue was 23, and then it was a scatter shot. I probably wasn't into the maybe 40s or 50s before I started collecting almost every issue
Yeah.
because
Wow.
it probably took me a few months to realize, oh, these things come out every month because I didn't collect comic books other than that before. So
Of
all right,
course.
so on this, so
Just
this,
looking
like we said, this
for.
issue isn't probably one of our top 10 issues, right? But panels on this page, I'm bringing it up now, a close up. This panel of Fred and his wife destroying the equipment with him screaming "arg" is just amazing. I remember this as a kid. This is one of the few things I remember the moment seeing this as a kid and being like, "Wow, they're really mad." You know what I mean? Like, it's just amazing. I love it. Um,
Mad enough to say arg.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Like,
how
that's a
fun would
serious
that have
arg.
been for Springer to draw? Like, just
And
draw them going batshit crazy.
he's got quite the kick going on. He's like on the Rockettes or something. He's Fred Rockette. He
I love that his wife is like double axe handling through equipment in her heels still.
gold, gold, such great. And again, the dialogue is so good, and like Wild Bill and saying the meat wagon. I gotta get in the meat wagon, which is the ambulance. And I love when Zartan walks by as disguised as Hawk, and like one of the MPs is like, "Check out that bird colonel" or whatever, and he's just referring to him being like a colonel, right? But I love the term bird
Right.
colonel
Bird
because
Colonel. Right.
he's got all the he's like your top colonel, I believe, is the he's got all the brass, right? Top brass,
Right. Yeah.
bird colonel,
And those little terms that Larry would put in, it was
the
so fun to
best.
learn them.
Yeah,
And not just those,
yeah,
like, I felt like I had inside information, right? Inside
yeah.
slang that I aware of. But it would be everything from like that kind of slang to full on terms like reconnoiter. Like, where are you going to hear that as a kid? It wasn't in this issue, but I know I learned that word from a GI Joe comic book. You know,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
so
Oh, absolutely. And the way, like, especially when Cobra Commander would go on rants and he'd use like amazing, like, insults and giant, like,
right.
multisyllabic, thesaurus, Googleable words. You're like, what did he just say?
Uh,
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, cool. So
Yeah.
that
Great
is.
stuff. So yeah, G.I. Joe 30.
Oh, and then you have the um the collected version. Does it give you? I bet you it doesn't tell. It doesn't show you what the ads were in the book, right?
No, which is again why I was kind of I'm like, I wish I'd had the issue with me right now. It's buried in boxes right now.
So I meant
Um,
to make a slide of this. I saved out the image, but I didn't put it into the production here. But I have the book in my hand. Can you, if I gave you one guess as to what the back cover ad, full page ad on the back
oh,
cover was, I'll give you a hint. It was a video game, like it usually was.
yeah.
Uh,
I want to say like Cubert maybe
Close. You're
or
close.
Centipede.
Close. It's in that realm.
It's the Atari realm.
It's a Parker Brothers game.
And it's not the GI Joe game
No, no,
because
it's
that was
right.
Atari.
Like if it's one of those ones that was advertised to death in this era, and this would have been version 2. This would have been
Oh, Frogger maybe.
yes, you got
It's
it. It's
Frogger.
Frogger
Yeah.
2, Beyond
Yeah.
the Pond, and I never had Frogger,
Amazing.
but I knew everything about
It's a great
Frogger because
ad.
I think I
That's a good
saw
looking ad.
more Frogger ads in comic books than I saw any other ad in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
They
okay.
worked. I was just talking to my buddy about bonkers ads. Were
Oh
there any
yes.
bonkers ads in this one?
I bet you there was. Bonkers went bonkers with their advertising in this time period, from the crazy ass commercials to the comic book
Yeah.
ads. My brother would eat
Yeah.
those. He had a pocket full of those constantly. He would just walk around eating
Oh
those
man,
things.
bonkers were the best.
Oh,
Yeah, you remember the ads and the fruit would like
yeah.
kill people?
The old lady. It would crush the old lady every time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I just remember a lot of bonkers ads in those comics. Yeah. Bonkers. The watermelon ones were good actually.
Oh, Classic Action
Wow,
Figures,
I
I
got to
think, got
track.
Frogger. I think he got it right. I missed that. Cool. Nice one.
Nice.
Oh, and
Nice.
then White Vegeta
Well,
says, "Love the comic books. Just got 3 pack with Quinn," and that was always cool when they re-released some of these books in the comic
beautiful.
book packs. That was nice.
Yeah.
Um,
And in those comic book packs, they actually had new comics. There were some issues that were brand new,
right.
and that's actually cool because those are collected in
Oh,
these.
nice.
I don't work for IDW. I just love pushing their books on people.
I don't
I
have
will
I
work
don't
for
have those
IDW.
collected versions.
Holler, IDW.
Yeah, I know. What are they doing?
Yeah,
They need
if
to.
IDW is listening, please give me a call.
You've got
But
ideas. I know you've got Cobra
me and
La
everybody else,
ideas.
I know every Joe fan wants to work at IDW, but here we go. So the fact that IDW reprinted this stuff, like these comics that were only available with the figures, right? So this is like issue what 22 and a half, or they did all these uh the Tiger and the Teapot. So this issue fits
Oh, right.
in
Cool.
continuity, and they're written by Larry Hama. So
That's hey, perfect.
and it's got a cool story with Snake Eyes, and yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna have to like
But
track. I know
these
they're not
books are
cheap,
great.
but I gotta track them down. Okay, so
Yeah, they're well, yeah, $50 cover price. So
there's a few of them. So
yeah,
so think
I
of
was working at a comic shop as they were coming out, so
Strange Adventures.
I got the staff discount. I was at Silver Snail when these ones were
You were at Silver
dropping, but
Snail?
yeah,
Man, you had multiples.
yeah. I worked at I just hopped around at comic shops. Yeah, just working.
There's worse
One in
jobs.
Halifax, one. No, I know they're the best. But I have some nice bookshelves to show for those days for sure. So shout out Strange Adventures in Halifax and Silver Snail in Toronto. Absolutely, Get your funny books.
All right, so we're almost at like an hour and a half. So we should probably do
I'm probably gonna. Yeah, we should probably tap out.
you should probably tap out, but do you have anything for mail call before we do?
No, this the Cobra Commander was the first thing I've ordered, like Destro a couple weeks ago, and then Cobra Commander, and that's I got to behave myself in these times. I'm trying to save up all my money to put out a new album, so
Yeah, that's
that's
right.
kind of what I got to work on right now. I got studio costs and stuff once they open up, so that's kind of what I'm working on right now.
It
So,
sounds like that's the
but
right
yeah,
priority, I would say.
I hope so. Yeah,
So,
I'm excited about it. Yeah,
um,
yeah.
that's awesome. I'm like I said, I'm at my dad's place in East Aurora, so I did get a bunch of things in the last few weeks that we were kind of off doing Thursday night battles, but I didn't bring them with me. I did bring a few things to hopefully shoot photos of this weekend. I'll still be here through the weekend, um, but I don't know if I'm really allowed to show them. But I will show one. All right, so
Yeah, sure.
I have this box behind me, guys. Um, that
I was curious about this
that
box.
came it came from Hasbro, and it's well,
Ooh,
it's
what?
GI Joe classified figures, the whole first wave. I've
How did this happen?
Well, I can't say, but but I've only opened one so far, and it's everyone's favorite. It's Destro, and let
Beautiful.
me just tell you, this figure is amazing. Like they really nailed it out. They hit this one out of the park um, for Destro, you know. And now that we have the website, we can understand what these little graphics mean. Because if you go to the website, it'll tell you what these little graphics mean on the sides. But this one's open, so I'll go ahead and pull this one out. So it's gonna be really loud for a
You
second.
tease.
It's so loud. This plastic. But I've already got his pistol holstered, his gold pistol, in the side here. I really like this gold pistol, by the way. I know people aren't into these guns for whatever reason, but this gold, it's hard to see, but this gold pistol is pretty cool.
It's a nice nod to Iron Grenadiers, right? They've
Yes.
got everything's gold. They've got gold missiles. Yeah.
So,
Oh, that was another joke I want to mention real quick from issue 30. The missiles. He mentions the chaplain's assistant school, and he's
yeah.
like, "Oh, they shoot missiles at you," meaning like the book, the missile. I was like, "Oh, like I ruined the joke, but that was like, oh, Larry, you're killing it with the comedy here." But
Larry,
please,
he's secretly hilarious.
yeah.
He's like deadpan funny a lot of ways. Like when you see him at cons, he doesn't look like but his mind's going in funny
Oh,
places.
he's a genius. He's a genius. Yeah.
So,
But please, yeah.
all right, so
Destro.
Destro
Wow.
right here, his necklace moves around, so it's not like molded, so you can move it around a little bit. But like the posability in these guys, the double jointed knees, like I mean, you can really get these guys into. Look at this, like it's just crazy. And there's like a ball joint in the waist. I mean, it's you can get them in all these weird positions and stuff. But yeah, I love this figure. I gotta say, they really nailed it. So I know some people aren't a fan of this pouch, this red pouch on his leg, but there's precedent for that. I mean, the original figure had a red holster on his leg, and he did in the Sunbow cartoon too. So I don't know. I think that's nitpicky a little bit. But he's almost exactly how he was in the original one. He's got the little gray accents here and there on the shoulders and stuff. But other than that, it's pretty much straight on.
Now, height wise, how does he compare to the other figures?
It's a good question. I think he's a little taller than some, but I haven't put him up to neck. Let me see. Oh yeah, he's
Yeah, like with the
all
50th
right.
edition Destro, they made him taller. Yeah,
So if you look at him next to Scarlet, it's he's in
yeah, that's
front.
great
He's in
scale.
front, so it's a little exaggerated, but he's still definitely taller than Scarlet.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, I mean the scales, which is nice. The O-ring figures obviously were always the same height. Um, with these, at least, you do get some height differences. I know from the photos from Cobra Commander when he was announced, there was pictures with Destro, and Cobra Commander looks shorter than Destro, which as he should be. So I
Yeah.
think that works out well. So I have these in hand, and I'm going to be shooting some photos of these this week coming up.
Can we see can we see the other Snake Eyes?
Duke,
I'm
yeah.
curious about the retail Snake Eyes.
So I'll get to him last. I got one more to show here. That's everyone's favorite Roadblock version 2. It's with his sweet weapon everyone loves so much. But I think it's cool. All right, so they actually sent me 2 Snake Eyes because I guess 6 figures fit in this case, and in order to round out the case, I got 2. So this is the all black Snake Eyes, and what's really cool about this one is I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little red notch above his visor. You see that in the center of his?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that's cool. It's a little nice touch, you know. So he's basically the same exact Snake Eyes as the exclusive one, but he doesn't come with the Uzi, and he comes with these kind of like laser rifle looking things. So I'm going to use the Uzi with him that came with the exclusive one that I have. Now, people are complaining about the lack of realistic weapons, but I honestly think it's the retailers that are kind of dictating that. I think the retailers, like a Walmart or a Target or whatever, they're dictating to Hasbro kind of what they want to see and don't want to see. And having worked with in retail marketing before, we know, for example, I was in fashion, but uh, Target, Kohl's, those places would always dictate to us what kind of things they want to see the next year and the next stuff. And if we gave them something they didn't want to see, they might not make shelf space for us. So that could be a concern. So
Well, you're always in fashion, as
yeah,
far as
right.
I'm
I've got speaking of fashion, I got my Baroness Killer Cobra shirt.
beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's a really nice one.
So that's kind of my mail call. I wasn't gonna show them, but I figured I brought them out just in case, and I figured we should just show them a little bit. I'll have photos of these guys by next week, so they should start showing up on my Instagram feed. So excited! I've got some complicated one in the works. It's a GI Joe cover tribute. Um, it's a composite of multiple images that I cannot shoot together. I have to shoot them separately, and you'll see why if I can pull it off. I don't know if I can pull it off yet, so we'll have to see.
Can't wait, man. Yeah, I know the photos you were sharing some just amazing ones the last month or so.
Thanks, man.
Been
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, some really great ones. Yeah, the one with sort of the ghosts was
Oh,
beautiful.
yeah. I've been thinking about
Yeah,
that one for a while, and
that was great.
I finally got it done. It was supposed to be for Memorial Day here in the States, but um, it's one of those things where I could have posted it then, but I was not happy, so I actually reshot the whole thing, and it posted a few days later because I don't know. To that point that I like if it isn't exactly the way I want it, I'd rather hold off. So yeah, I think it turned out
Well, I
good.
look forward to the book one day. We got to do that.
I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about it. Back in the world, right? So
That's right, man. Back in the world. Yeah.
it's definitely in the back of my mind.
Yeah. Right on, man. Well, look, I got to bounce.
Yep,
So this
same.
has been amazing. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, this is great. I
So
love doing these, especially when you're on and when Chris is on too. We always have
shout
a
out
great
Chris.
time.
Yeah, for sure.
But thanks for everybody. Vagon, Wade Vegeta, Classic Action Figures, all you guys in here, Chris from the Full Force. Everybody who joined in. Thanks so much for hanging out. And if everything goes well, I'll be back next week, next Thursday. So until then, I guess yo Joe.
Yo,